Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
All right, Andrew, tell me how much, how full of poop is Indiana Jones? Like, how much of it is fiction? And have you ever punched a Nazi?
I know this is going to be shocking, but on two counts. Count number one, I have not punched a Nazi ever, not even once. I even worked in Germany one summer. No,
Oh,
no Nazis. And also in terms of Indiana Jones, I mean, Indiana Jones is obviously for fun. And like I love Indiana Jones. What's wrong with Indiana Jones? Of course, I mean, the number of times I've run away from a boulder is zero,
right.
unfortunately. I mean, I'm still waiting. At some point, maybe a boulder will come to get me, and I'm ready, prepared. But
Nice.
yeah, no. While we can have fun with Indiana Jones in the same moment, let's have fun with Indiana Jones. That's it's okay. I don't want to ruin people's fun. And actually, I think that the audience is smart enough and knowledgeable enough that they know it's in fun too. I don't think I've ever had anybody seriously think, that I've run away from a boulder or
Right.
battled my way out of a Nazi camp or, so, and also if your discipline gets to have Harrison Ford as the poster child, good for you.
Absolutely. You know what? I am impressed with you, Andrew, because I didn't know if you were going to be some snooty academic, when seeing a movie like Indiana Jones and, taking it the wrong way. But it's great. I love your attitude.
Wait, I'm not coming across as a snooty academic. I need to do something. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go get a bow tie. Just give me a second.
For the viewers and listeners out there, Andrew, you got to check out his videos. Like he's got a really great kind of vibe and charm to him when talking about archaeology. And honestly, sir, you should be getting way more like subscribers and viewers, in my opinion. Your videos are that entertaining.
That's supremely kind. Thank you so much. And I'm happy with my videos, and luckily my subscriber count does go up over time. I started that about 4.5 years ago or so. This is my YouTube channel, Kinkella Teaches Archaeology, and I just started it. I was a little worried. I'm like, oh my God, what if it comes out terrible? What if I look like a fool? But that first 6 months, and this is for anyone who's into starting a YouTube channel or that kind of stuff. I just felt like I was talking just into a cave, into nowhere. I'm like, I don't know. This could be terrible, but so what? And then the key to it is just to keep going, and over time you get more viewers. And I love when the viewers leave comments and that kind of stuff. Like that's great. And I do try and answer as many as I can. And also I love their suggestions. I take in terms of like, oh, hey, could you do a video on this? Or I'm always curious about this in archaeology. And so I'm like, oh, great. I man, probably a third of all my videos were just based on viewers suggestions or my students suggestions, and that's what helps me. Like I need the audience feedback. It makes things better.
Good for you. I'm glad you have that kind of attitude. Everybody out there, check out his stuff for sure. Andrew, tell me about the origin story, archaeology. How did you get over there?
So originally, when I went to college, I went to UC Santa Barbara for my bachelor's degree. And when I first got there, I wanted to be an actor, which I know is shocking.
Yeah.
And what happened my very first semester there, I had an introductory acting class and an introductory archaeology class. And it turned out the opposite of what you would think. The drama class was really boring, taught by the most ineffectual, like energyless professor ever. And the archaeology class was taught by a dynamic, exciting professor. And that guy, at the end of that class, I wasn't even sure if I want to be an archaeologist, but I was like, you know what? I want to be that guy. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do in my life, but I want to have my life turn out like him. He'd been to all these crazy places and he'd worked in Africa for years. It just his stories, man. That guy had lived. So after seeing that, I just kept archaeology on my radar. And then 2 years later, when I was like a junior, I got the opportunity to work in Belize in Central America for 3 months. on an archaeological excavation. And this was every cliche in the positive sense.
Right.
We worked at a huge Maya city in the jungle. And so after 3 months of that, working at a Maya city in the jungle, you come back home and most other things are kind of secondary, like you're not going to be majoring in economics anymore. Like it's like this is just
Wow.
fascinating. And so from then I just continued that path and hey, here I am today.
Nice. Nice. So talk about the gig itself. So archaeology, you're an archaeologist. You're just dusting bones. What are you doing?
I wish I need to sit around and dust bones more often. Um, it's there's different kind of career pathways, and there's really two. There's one where you work in kind of the business world, and what that means is when construction companies are going to like build a new complex or something, they have an archaeologist come to make sure you're not digging up like Native American burial grounds or that kind of stuff. So there's that world, and honestly, these days I would say most archaeologists work in that world because there's always construction and they always need them, and they need to kind of follow the law, and so there's that world. On the other world is the more sort of well-known, you're a professor archaeologist, which is what I am. And
Mm,
so how that works is you teach a full load of classes, throughout the year. And then in the summers, you might do some sort of archaeological expedition, just depending. Like some summers, there were summers when I was gone for 2 or 3 months, but there's other summers where maybe I do nothing. Maybe I stay in the lab and dust
mm.
bones, or organize the artifacts and that kind of stuff. Um, so those are sort of the two setups. People often ask me, how do I make money as an archaeologist? And
Mm,
it's like, I make money because the college pays me to teach. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
so my tax returns are like you're a college professor. So I don't make money by selling artifacts or something like that. The artifacts are always um, owned
Mm.
by the country wherever you work, as it should be. I've never felt some weird urge to like own the artifacts I find or something like that. It just doesn't work that way. This sounds, again, speaking of cliches, this sounds totally cliche, but it's true.
Yeah.
Um, the excitement in finding the artifacts and stuff is ultimately using them to tell the story of the past. Like there was
Mm,
something you didn't know, and now you know it. And
right.
and those are the ones you live for. Like it's so exciting. You're like, dude, we had no idea how old this city is. Now we know how old it is. We had
Yeah.
no idea who the kings and queens were. Now we know. Like
Wow.
that's the good stuff.
Was there an artifact that stood out, like from a past field excavation that
There,
you did, or?
there's always things that are like entertaining or interesting. Like I remember one summer working there, we found a like a Maya jade ear spool. So this is like sort of like a big like jade earring,
Right.
like that. And that's, exciting and interesting. Or if you find a really cool
Mhm.
piece of Maya pottery that has polychrome on it, which is like, drawings or this kind of stuff. That
Right.
that can be really cool. But the excitement, the excitement is in the day to day, like
Mm.
you're in the jungle and you're working on you're working at a place where nobody's been home for 1,000 years,
Wow.
and you're the first, like your group is the first to uncover and sort of answer some of these mysteries or questions, your walking point. And that is really exciting.
All right. So you've been to Belize. That's one uh, thing you did. Any other locations you've done like a field trip to?
Sure. I mean, Belize is like kind of the mothership. Like that's
Right.
where I've been. I think I've done 17 field seasons there or something like that. It's like a
Wow.
bunch. Um, but beyond that, I've also worked in other areas of Mesoamerica. I've worked in like the Yucatan Peninsula in southern Mexico. I've worked in Guatemala a little bit. I've also done kind of like little summer field schools. When I was a student, like I said earlier, I worked in Germany for a summer. I've worked a bit in the desert, kind of the desert Southwest area, kind of Eastern California. I've worked in local California archaeology, doing the that business side that I talked about at the
Right.
beginning. Before I got my teaching position, I did a lot of that, like local, sort of looking out for construction companies. So yeah, that's sort of that's most of the places I've worked, I think.
Very cool. So fun stories. You're out on expeditions. Do you bump into wildlife? Do you see the bones? Like any fun stories that you could share?
There's 1,001 wildlife stories because you really are. I mean, for better or worse, you are in the jungle. Like if you
Right.
have a GPS unit that can actually get a reading, that's the other thing. People are like, oh, you just take a GPS. No, like
Right.
in order to get a reading with a GPS unit, you need like a clear sky. And so, like, if it's just all jungle and trees and leaves, you're lucky. I mean, so many days I spent with a GPS unit, like walking around hoping
Right.
that I could kind of get one like bleep. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
If you look at a map of where you are, it's just all green. It's all forest for miles
Wow.
and miles and miles and miles and miles. So you're literally have a machete and you're cutting a trail through the jungle,
Right.
and of course, while you do that, you have various, jungle creatures that you see. I will say,
Yeah.
I've never seen a jaguar because they don't want to be seen, but I've smelled them and I've heard them. And
Yeah.
if you ask me what does a jaguar smell like, um, just take your cat, hold it up to your mouth, and go like just
Oh.
stuck in a cat for a second. And because what you're doing is you're walking through the jungle and everything seems fine. And then all of a sudden you hit this cloud of like cat smell. And then you're
Oh.
like, wow, that smells like, oh my God, that smells like a cat, and it sort of dawns, you're like, and also the jaguar isn't going to let you smell them unless they're, in a good position. So there's that. I've seen a bajillion snakes of different, qualities.
Oh. Wow.
There's weird things every so often. I remember just walking through the jungle and like maybe 20 feet, 15 feet in front of me, a 5 foot tall bird walked by.
Holy.
And I was like, what's wrong? Am I dreaming? Do I have malaria? No, I looked it up later and it's called like the Jaibaru. It's this huge sort of Central American bird, and it looks like a big, kind of like a stork, or in that it's white, and but seeing that walk through the jungle, it was like I swear it almost felt like it was a Dr. Seuss character, and as it walked, it would go, "Why, hello, Andrew, welcome back to Belize," and then just sort of keep going. Weird stuff like that will happen when you're out in the jungle.
Oh my goodness. So you had no like confrontations like Andrew versus animal, nothing like that. No?
where I pull out my Bowie knife and have a wrestle to the death.
That's
No,
it.
not nothing like that.
Okay.
I think it's a combination of being a bit lucky, also listening. We have like a Belizean staff who we hire, and those guys are like
Right.
really great in the jungle, and they know they're going to see the snake before you do.
Right.
Just years of listening to them, I've gotten like decent in the jungle, never as good as them, but good enough to get along.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, there's been nothing of comic book size that's happened like that.
Understood. So how long does a trip like that need to be planned for? Like, is it like just, like, okay, you got like a month or a week? How does it, what do you do to get that done?
It's a long time and no time at the same time. And what I mean by that is the overall plan, you're starting the better part of a year before. You kind of finish the previous field season and then you kind of go, "Hey, what should we, what do you think for next time? What should we do? What do we need? What have we missed? What are some like we've found some new stuff. So what are some like new questions that we can kind of focus on? How are we going to change the project?"
Right.
Um, I always tell my students every year is different because funding is different. Like
Right.
every year, you might just get lucky and get some great funding from like National Geographic or National Science Foundation or something like that, but that's rare. That is not every day, and those are really hard to
Right.
get. Like you get denied way more than you get accepted. I think that's what a lot of times the general public doesn't realize. So I think sometimes I think like National Science Foundation grants are like pretty easy to, you just fill out a form or something. No, 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 no. A ton of
Right.
people fill out, most of them get denied, and a handful of people get it. So sometimes you have money and you can, rent the nice trucks and
Right.
stay in a nice place and have the nice food. And other times it's like, hey, the project is much more narrow, there's much fewer people. You're just, kind of winging it, sleeping in a tent or whatever. So the planning and the money is different. And then as it gets closer, you need like the permits and stuff. You got to make sure that goes through okay. It usually does, but sometimes there's a problem. You never know. You know, I've been parts of projects that look like a green light until the last minute when it was like, oh, sorry, there's it could be there's a hurricane and you know this area is you just impenetrable this summer, whatever it might be. Um, so you hope for the best, but always know that like it could all stop, even when you're there. Like the rainy season, you're always running against the rainy season. And when the rainy season comes, it's like, all right, guys, we got like a week and it's going to be terrible, but because things happen like river is now too high. Can't cross river anymore. Hope you're on the right side. You know, like things like that. You know, it all of a sudden when the rainy season comes, it gets so much more difficult and it just becomes almost not worth it, you know, so you might have to stop early. So there's all kinds of things there
My goodness.
in terms of how this stuff works.
So, okay, so you get the funding first, at least try to. Then you do the plan in regards to the checklist of things you want to get done on the trip. Is that how it works?
You do both at the same time, hoping that the
Okay.
funding will come through. And then if it
Got it.
doesn't, then you have a plan pretty good for the next year, you know.
Got it. All right. So
Yeah.
hold my hand here, Andrew. Now, if I wanted to be an archaeologist, a viewer or listener out there wants to be an
Yeah.
archaeologist, what skills do they need? What schooling do they need? Let us
Right.
know.
So archaeology is an intrinsically academic discipline. So you can't just buy a shovel and go for it, right? That's not what it's
Right.
about.
Sure.
So you do want to get a bachelor's. It doesn't have to be in archaeology, but it's nice if it's in like anthropology or related. If I'm building the world's most perfect archaeologist, I would say you get a bachelor's in kind of anthropology or archaeology. You get real experience. You go to like a field school, you take the archaeology classes that are about working in the lab or how do you map things. There's survey and mapping classes. Those are great. You know, you take GIS classes, which are how to, you know, map things using the GIS software. I really try and get people who are curious about it to get those on ground skill sets because that's what matters. It's like, yes, you can take every theory class to think about archaeology a lot, but that doesn't help you cut a trail through the jungle. That doesn't help you get funding, you know. And I
Mm.
do find in colleges in general, there's way too much of a push for this more theoretical, you know, sort of theory on theory overthought kind of thing versus real skills doing the real work. I think in the most effete, snobbish universities, they think of it as like below them. Like, oh, I don't touch dirt. Are you kidding?
Right. Right.
You know, it's and
Yeah.
that is the dumbest way to think about it because ultimately for employment, they want it all. And I understand if I'm gonna hire a new professor, I want it all. I want a professor who can do all the digging and knows the theory and whatever. So I would do schooling based on that. And then after getting your bachelor's, the pathway is really either a master's or a PhD. It kind of depends on what you want to do, what you need. You can also be a part of an archaeology crew and have none of this. But many archaeology crews take volunteers, you know,
Oh,
so if you're like a lawyer, you know, by day, and you're like, you know, I just really love archaeology, you can look up and there can be like 2 weeks where projects will just say, hey, you can come and work for 2 weeks. And for those 2 weeks, let's say you come to Belize or whatever, you're in it. You're digging. Like, we need you to move that dirt over there. You know, so
right.
you're
Yeah.
not in some lab locked. You're living the dream, my friends. You're getting all the mosquito bites with the rest of us,
Right.
right? So there is that option as well. So you can kind of have career in archaeology, or
Mm.
you can kind of have a little vacation that is real archaeology where you really do the thing. So you kind of have those two pathways that you could do.
Got it. So when you're doing the field work, what skills do you need? Okay, you got the shovel. Like, where do you know where to go to find stuff?
That's a bit of the advanced class that you figure out over time. Is like
Okay.
I could do that, you know, but
Yeah.
a new person, they don't have to worry about that.
Mhm.
So for me, sure, I can pick the the better places to dig or the better places to make the maps or that kind of thing. That just comes from like experience over time. And your research question, what are you looking at? And so you want like a something like a Maya city is really big. You're not going to dig up the whole thing. It's way too big. You need to focus based on kind of what you're curious about. So that's how you kind of pick where you're going to dig. On the flip side, for somebody just getting into it, they just need to be able to deal with the day-to-day living far away from home,
Right.
for a while. They need to be able to like deal with loneliness. They need
Mm,
to be able to laugh things off. A sense of humor is
yeah.
huge. And I don't mean you just tell jokes. I don't mean like, oh, you just go, yeah, two ducks walk into a bar. That's not what I mean. I mean that you
Right.
can like living and working in the jungle is intrinsically uncomfortable. Yes, I know you're uncomfortable. We're all uncomfortable. Yes, I know you have 20 mosquito bites. We all do. Don't complain to me about that. Like, I have my own pain, so
Right.
it's about being sort of a giving, thoughtful member of the team. Tenacity is also just huge. So it's really underneath it all, sense of humor, tenacity. Those are the two things. Anyone can learn to dig. Anybody can learn to dig a square hole. Anybody can learn to dig slowly. Anybody can learn to make a map over time. Any of that.
Yeah.
It's the tough personality to be able to deal day to day in
Yeah.
a in a place where you will have bad days. Oh, you think you have bad days at home? Oh
Yeah.
no, friend. Oh, just wait. Right. You're out in the jungle, nowhere you're lonely, and you feel down. And it's to be able to kind of move through that and not let the darkness kind of take you away. So it's those kind of qualities that really matter.
It sounds like you need a powerful why. When you're out in the jungle and you're like really down on yourself, you got to think about the end result, right? And that's got to be
Yes,
to power you through. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
just kind of keep that like big picture mentality of like, look,
Yeah.
I knew this was coming. I knew there'd be some bad days. It
Right.
doesn't make it any better at this moment. Yes, I feel terrible, but it will get better.
Right.
You just hour through it. You're gonna have a couple days that are just gonna suck horribly. And then things will get better and you'll get the simple. Here comes a cliche.
Okay.
Enjoy the simple things in life. Like, hey man, you have coffee in the morning.
Yeah.
Not everybody does. It's that joy of the little things in the moment. And that stuff like that, huge on an archaeology project. Because again, you're intrinsically uncomfortable.
Right.
It's hot all the time. It's sweaty all the time. There's bugs everywhere. You just have to make peace with your bug overlord.
Right.
Like you can't be like, oh, I'm trying to stay away from mosquito bites. No. You just have to be like, take me, and
Right.
then just know that that's the steady state.
You got it. When you're in the jungle, I'm sure this is a burning question for many of your students. Do you bring toilet paper?
Yes.
Okay.
Next
We're not
question.
using leaves out there,
Absolutely.
right?
And with all of that kind of stuff, what's so funny is I actually so many people would ask me about this kind of stuff, like, what do you bring?
Yeah.
I wrote a blog post like a decade ago. I have this blog that I rarely write on, but I think it's also called Kinkella's Archaeology or Kinkella Teaches Archaeology. But I put this like Kinkella's backpack checklist, and it's like, here's all the stuff you need because so many people ask. So I'm like, here's my checklist. You're gonna work in the jungle, for a month, get this stuff, and I don't even know if toilet paper's on there because you can buy it like in town or wherever, you can, if you go to a different country. Yes, friends, they do have toilet paper there. It's okay.
Yeah.
But the answer is yes. You want to bring, and even beyond that, um you want to bring one or two little things from home that bring you joy.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, they can be snacks. Mine is Jolly Ranchers. Like I bring a bag of the little Jolly Ranchers. And so if I'm depressed and down, I can just put one in my mouth and kind of suck on it while I'm on the trail and be like, hey, grape, this is cool. And I'm telling you, man, those little things at home, little music you can listen to, stuff like that, that really matters.
Absolutely. So we touched upon a little bit of a day in the life of field work. So like how does it work when you're in the field? So you wake up like what? Right at dawn or something and then you
Early. Yeah,
yeah.
so you're not only you're rushing the rainy season in general,
Yeah.
specifically you're also like running away from the sun, because you have a tropical summertime sun, even though it's sweaty and hot all the time, it's also just beating down. In the jungle, sometimes you're kind of lucky because there's like the jungle canopy and kind of shady. But how an archaeology project in that area always works, you might wake up at like 5. And I'm not a morning person so much, and that was one of the hardest parts.
Oh,
It's like you guys, hey, Kinkella, what's the hardest part of the archaeology project? Man, getting up at 5. Um, so you get up early, you get out there early. Like we would get to the site maybe by 6:30. It depends on how far away the site is, depends on where you're staying, all that kind of stuff. And all the good work was done before lunch every time.
wow.
And then you would break for lunch, and then after you take a fairly early lunch because you woke up so early. But let's say after about noon, yeah, you work a little in the afternoon, but that is some slow work, man. You've done the heavy lifting in the early morning hours. Now it's hot. Now you're just really tired anyways, and you kind of just, you put it kind of in low gear, and so less gets done. Although the work day is usually done by like maybe 3 o'clock or something like that, and then you go home and shower if
Yeah.
you can, which is its own. Oh, showers.
Yes.
Showers are an incredible invention.
Oh, yes. The right water pressure. Yeah.
Dude, no, you just want water that's pouring from somewhere above.
Understood. All right. So you share the day in the life of field work. Let's get into the classroom. So, you're a professor. So how does that work? Tell me the full day, average day in Andrew's life as a professor.
Right. There's a lot of variety to that. I'll try and give kind of a
Okay.
cliche day,
Sure.
but basically, so since I'm a community college professor, I teach a full load for a community college professor is 5 classes, and college classes meet usually twice a week for like an hour and 15 each day. And so if you're like, oh, 5 classes, that's what, like 3 hours. So that's like 15 hours. That's 15 hours a week. What? You have a 15-hour a week work week? Oh, you're
Yeah.
lazy, right? But that's not, you got to realize that first, for those 15 hours, you're on. Like
Hmm.
Mick Jagger only has to do it like 2 hours, every so often during the concert. 15 hours a week. And this is for K through 12 teachers too. You're on, like, you don't get to sit and chill. You don't get to take some, no, you're the show, And so 15 hours a week of show. And then you also have to have all the setup and all the sort of behind the scenes stuff that a professor needs to do. There's various department meetings. There's all the setup of the archaeology stuff. There's got to be some time to write some grants or write some books or write some articles. Like, so there's a lot of that. A typical day, though, let's say I'm teaching 2 classes. So what'll happen is I'll wake up. A lot of times it ends up kind of 9 to 5 in its own way, where you get
Okay.
to school in the morning. Here I am in my office. Here we are. Um,
Nice.
I get there, let's say I get here at 9 or 9:30 or something like that. I've already kind of prepped myself for what I'm going to talk about. Like maybe I've looked over my notes. It depends on what I'm going to talk about. Maybe I have to prep a lot. So I'm like, oh man, I haven't done Stonehenge in a while. Oh, I got to remember that one.
Right.
Or I'm like, Pyramids of Giza. I got this sucker. So the morning depends kind of how much you have to kind of like look at your notes, look back and
Yeah.
remember. And then you get to school. Say I teach from 10 to 11:15. So
Hmm.
I get to the room a few minutes early. I set it up. I set up like my PowerPoint. If I'm doing a PowerPoint that day, I set up my computer. Chances are something's wrong technologically. So you have to like
Yeah.
screw around trying to get the like projector to work. Then you get it. Talk, your students come in, you have a class for like an hour and 15. Then you have a 15-minute break where students are just talking to you. One thing, man, if you want a diet plan, like
Yeah.
become a teacher or professor because you never have time to eat. Never have
Yeah.
time to eat, never have time to go to the bathroom. Like, yeah, there's a 15-minute break, but they're always asking you stuff, which
Oh
I
man.
understand. Like I'm cool.
Sure,
And
sure.
then the next class comes and then you do the same thing all over again. Then people talk to you more. And I usually they talk as I walk. I walk over to my office and I have like
Nice.
office hours for, I don't know, like an hour. Depends on the day.
Right.
and then students will come in and we talk more specific stuff about like their career or their test or whatever. Then that takes you into the early afternoon. Maybe in the early afternoon, I have time to kind of like focus a little more on my own project, doing whatever, answering emails,
Sure.
both from students and teaching stuff, and also from archaeology project stuff. Sort of doing that, maybe writing a little.
Yeah.
That's usually when I later in the afternoons when I record my YouTube videos. Like if
Yeah.
those who've seen my YouTube channel, it's here. Like I sort of stand over here.
Oh,
I
there
have a
you go.
camera set
Yeah.
up like off, right off screen here. And
Yeah.
so I might like record a video or something, and then I'm done by the, like whatever it is, for, somewhere in there. That's usually about when I leave campus, but there's a lot of variety. Some days maybe you have
Got it.
3 classes in a row. Sometimes you have 0. And you have a really weird schedule. Like I'll have
Yeah.
a field class where I teach all day Saturdays from 9 to 3:45. So
Uh-huh.
I have the weirdest, my weekly schedule, totally weird. Like I have, like today we're recording this on a Thursday. I have Thursdays and Fridays off.
Right.
I'm at school all day Saturday. I have Sundays off. And then I have like Monday. See, it's all, so that has been my schedule for like 20 years.
Nice. You seem like a very chill, cool kind of teacher. To me, I don't get this snooty, pretentious professor action happening from you. You must be a fan favorite amongst the students.
Well, that's all lies. So this is just a mask,
Okay.
and so
Got
as
it.
soon as I see them, I'm like, okay, losers,
Right.
get to work. And then I have, and then I like wrap their knuckles with a ruler whenever they do
Right.
something wrong. I'm like, wrong. Um,
Right.
now, I think I would say this. Like, I think I'm the right tool for the job.
Yeah.
I take not just teaching seriously, but I take like enjoyment of archaeology really seriously.
Mm.
And I do have a drama background, and also I was on an improv comedy team for a couple of years when I was in like at the end of college. And so I know how to hold an audience.
Right.
I take stuff like the art of storytelling seriously, and I want the audience to take something from it. I want them to just dig it, and I want them to have fun. God, can we joke a little, please?
Yes. Yes.
And so yeah, that's what I do. And yeah, I've gotten a lot of um positive, feedback from my students over the years and stuff, and I can tell they just dig it. And sometimes,
Yeah.
again, it's simple. I literally just want them to have some fun in college,
Yeah.
like and want to come. And like when we're there, just know that it's relaxed. And it's like, and I always tell them, it's like, am I going to make fun of you? Of course I am.
Right.
Like
Yes.
and let's go. And you make fun of me and we're having a good time. Right. And while at the same time, I sneakily make sure you know about Stonehenge, or whatever it might be.
It's like you're stuffing veggies in the meatloaf so that they don't know they're eating veggies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What I say, my metaphor is I'm making a piece of candy.
Mm.
I'm making all this into a little piece of candy that you can have and num 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 num. It's so nice. But while you're eating it, oops, you learned archaeology.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. That's cool, man. I'm glad that you have such a great fan base over there. So I'm gonna ask a silly question. I
How dare
apologize
you?
ahead of time.
Okay, I'm gonna get very angry and get in a huff and run away.
All right,
So let's see. Do it.
do what you got to do.
I might.
Okay, archaeology, dinosaurs, right? Dinosaurs is a different kind of thing, right? The study of
Yes.
dinosaur bones and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. I get that question all the time. In
Okay,
seriousness, that's one where it's a test for the academic who you're asking. If you
okay,
go, "Hey, in archaeology, do you dig dinosaurs?" If they go, "Oh, of
right,
course not, you stupid, stupid fool," or they
right,
make you feel bad, that sucks. That's a
okay,
sign of a shitty instructor.
right,
Like when that happens, you got to be kind and like, I understand you didn't know that, and I'll just
yeah,
be like, no, actually, if you're into dinosaurs, it's paleontology. So
okay.
ultimately,
There you go.
like if I'm building the world's most successful paleontologist, I'm like, you get a geology degree. So it's so old that you deal with like age of the earth and that kind of stuff because dinosaurs are so old. With that said, and I've had this a lot of times in my career, paleontology students, I have one or two right now.
Okay.
Paleontology students will take my classes because they can learn the field classes because they can learn like the mapping and the excavation and stuff, which is the same skill set. So
Okay.
that's cool, that while the skill set and the setup is the same, it's what you're looking for is totally different. So archaeologists are looking for ancient human stuff.
Sure.
Paleontologists, dinosaurs and that kind of thing, which is, like 100 million years old. I look for stuff that's like 2,000 years old.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification there.
Yeah,
I was wondering for a second. Okay, well, just to keep with that for 1 second, I'm just curious.
it's fine.
Okay, it's again another silly question. So,
Oh dear.
movies like
Again, silly questions on here constantly. I don't know. What has happened to me? How far I've fallen.
exactly. So, okay, Jurassic Park. You see how those dinosaurs look the way they do?
Yeah.
All we got is bones. How
Yes.
can we see that the dinosaurs look the way they look in these movies and TV shows? How do we know this? This is just all guess, right? I'm assuming.
It's I wouldn't just say it's a guess, it's an educated guess. And
Okay.
so what you get is there's always an aspect of guesswork to it, of course, but again, it's based on facts, it's based on what you find. And so the more you find over time, the better it gets. Like if you look at dinosaur reconstructions from like 70 years ago,
Yeah.
it's way worse. Like they get closer and better. The more we learn about biology, the more we learn about evolution, the more you learn about the more fossils you find because you have a little bit more variability. Like they're better all the time. Are they 100%? Of course not, but they're close.
Okay.
The hardest stuff is stuff like color. Like what color were their skin? Oh, good God, I don't know. But the
Right.
but the overall the structure of them and sort of how they move and stuff,
Right.
getting pretty good. And that's the
Okay.
same. It's the same with like if you're reconstructing like a human skull, like you find a human skull and you want to know what the person looked like. The
Right. Yeah.
overall like shape and stuff, the overall look is pretty close, but how they wore their hair, shit, who knows? Right. Same thing.
Got it. Okay, yeah, yeah, I'm just curious about that. Yeah, okay, cool. All right, so any final piece of advice for the good viewer listener out there who wants to enter archaeology?
Um, it's listen to all the stuff I just said.
Right.
It's really if you're passionate about it, like that will take you far. You want to be passionate about it. I will say in the archaeology world, most archaeologists I meet are passionate, or at least they were at some point.
Oh
But
man. Okay.
but there's a handful who kind of aren't. And I'm like, what are you doing here?
Right.
Because in archaeology, you're not going to get rich. There's going to be times when you're extremely uncomfortable. It's tough. Like things like having a family and stuff, can be very difficult if you're like, oh, dad has to go to the jungle for 2 months. See you later. I did most of that stuff like before I had a family, like the long field seasons and stuff. So
Okay.
these days I go much shorter. I'll go for like a week and a half or something, and so I still have my toe in it, but the like massive work I've done is kind of from before, but I can still like there's still stuff in the lab. You talk about like brushing off bones or whatever. Like I can
Right.
still there's still a ton of that stuff to kind of
Hmm.
do and publish and stuff. So I'm kind of getting really into that. But yeah, if you want to be an archaeologist, if you're passionate about it, a couple things. Just learn more about it, read more about it. You can take a local community college class on intro to archaeology. Just take it. See what you think. You're like, but I'm retired. So what? Having retired people, that's great. We have what we call non-traditional students. And contrary to belief, they're some of our favorite students. I love having older, more mature students, even in the jungle and whatever, because they're mature and they can lead by example. So if you have like a 22-year-old out there and they want to complain a bunch, you go, hey, look at old Joe. He's 74 years old and he don't complain at all. So if he can do it,
Nice.
you can do it. Be more like Joe. So I
For
would
sure.
totally say that if you're passionate, take intro to archaeology. Almost every local community college has an intro to archaeology class. Take it, go from there. There'll be a professor there that can like point you in other directions. Again, as I said before, you can volunteer on a project. Those come out, Google them. They're all over the place, all different costs. from not too bad to really pretty expensive. It just depends on where you're going. So yeah, there's all kinds of possibilities there. Take it seriously. If you're into it, don't let it go. You're into it, you're passionate about it, try it out.
Beautiful. Some great tips there, Andrew. Thank you. Where
Yeah.
can people find out how to contact you? Like you got the YouTube happening. You should
Yep.
get some TikTok action happening as well,
I are
Andrew.
so I do
Yeah.
have what I like to call my media empire.
Okay.
I think the easiest way is on my YouTube channel on Kinkella Teaches Archaeology. You can leave a comment in the comments, and it doesn't even matter which video because I just get all the comments. I'll do my best to get back to you. There's also like I have an email address attached to the YouTube video. You can like click on it and email me if you have a question or something. That's totally fine. I also do I'm a member of two podcasts. One on the business side of archaeology called the CRM podcast, and the other one which is called the Pseudo-Archaeology podcast. That's kind of my baby. The Pseudo-Archaeology podcast comes out every other week, and that one like kind of debunks like fun, Atlantis stuff and that kind of situation, sort of tells the real stories behind that stuff. I really enjoy doing that one. And those are on, your Apple Podcasts, your Spotify's, whatever, you can find them there. So that's me. I'm around. You can always just Google my name. I come up all over the place.
Just Google me. I'm there.
I'm around. I'm a figure. I'm a public figure, dude.
Nice. Andrew, this has been great. Thank you so much.
Same. This has been a blast. Thanks for having me.
Wow, that was pretty cool. Andrew, thank you for being on the show. Some really interesting information that I really didn't know about in regards to the world of archaeologists and all that. My knowledge base was basically on Indiana Jones and all those movies. So again, Andrew, thank you for showing me the light and showing us the behind the scenes of archaeology. All right, that's it for this episode. Feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel and podcast. Until next time, take care and have a great one.